What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Swift video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to build a custom tab bar in SwiftUI. So down at the bottom here, we've got this tab bar component, which is fully built with a custom, approach. It's not the tab view. We'll take a look at how to, change, of course, the corresponding view when you tap on it, the selected state, and I think what's probably most important and what's most interesting to you guys is how do you get this custom functionality and look and feel. So we've got this, of course, circular button here with a plus. We can tap it, and instead of it showing another tab UI, it actually presents this guy modally. So we'll take a look at how to set this up. It's fairly straightforward, but it definitely does set your application apart from all the rest. So if that all sounds good to you, make sure you start by destroying that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. I super appreciate it. It super helps. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're into iOS and haven't subscribed, hit subscribe while you're at it. That all said, let's get into the video. All right, we're going to get started by opening up Xcode and creating a new project. We're going to stick with the app template here under iOS. Make sure your project is set to Swift, and let's go ahead and change both the lifecycle and interface to SwiftUI. And I'm going to go ahead and call this custom SwiftUI tab bar. Go ahead and continue, and let's toss it onto our desktop. All right, cool. So first things first, we're going to expand our window here. Let's close up this right panel. Let's resume our preview. Let me also go ahead and close this left panel. And let's see, let's also change the preview device to be a 12 Pro Max. So while this guy renders, let's talk a little bit about how to build out a custom tab bar and also why. So the tab view that SwiftUI offers out of the box as of early 2021 isn't really customizable. So it's kind of annoying to use. So what we're going to do is we are going to implement our own tab bar where we can really customize every single thing. So the first thing we're going to start by doing is adding a VStack. And in this VStack, we're going to want two more subsequent stacks. So the first one is going to be a Z stack where our content is going to go. And then we want a divider between the content and our actual tab bar. And if you think about it, a tab bar is nothing more than a horizontal stack. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a H stack in here. And what we can basically do is we can basically have 5 elements in here, and they can all be, tab items. So what we can do is a for each over, let's say 0 up until 5, where ID is going to be self. And here, all we can do is number in. And for each of these, what we can go ahead and do is we can add a button. And of course, when we tap on the button, we would want to change the content. So let's leave the action as is for the time being. And let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and add an image in here instead of a label. And we're going to use a system named image. And let's just hard code them all to be house for a quick moment. And let's see, let's go ahead and change the foreground color on this to be, I don't know, we'll go ahead and say black. And I'm also going to go ahead and change the font size on this to be a system size. Let's see, we want the one with a size and maybe a weight. We'll say maybe like 25, a weight of default, and a design of default, I think, is an option here as well. Kind of guessing. We'll see if design actually allows us to say default. Let's see. This should be regular is what I meant. Regular and default. Cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at our preview on the right-hand side here. And what we see is we have our 5 icons side by side. There is one issue, and that issue is that this stuff is in the middle of the screen. So that's not really what we want. So let's see, what else do we need? So let's go ahead and add a spacer here so it pushes the tab bar down to the bottom, which is starting to look pretty good. But let's also go ahead and add a spacer in between, rather on the left and the right side of the button. That way, I think it'll space out each of these evenly, just like that. So this is starting to look pretty good. Now, the other thing that you might be wondering is, okay, well, what happens when we tap on one of these? And we also need to deal with like the selected state of these buttons. So the way we're going to keep track of, which index of a tab bar is selected is pretty simple. We're just going to have a state property up here. So let's go ahead and create that. This should be capital. And let's go ahead and say this is selected index, and we know how to spell correctly. And we're going to give it a default of, let's say, 0. So the first tab is going to be selected by defaults. And we're going to put our content into VStack here. And the reason we chose a VStack is we basically want whatever content to be on top of one another based on whichever index is selected. So let's go ahead and switch over the selected index here. And what we can go ahead and do is, let's say it's 0. That's not what we want. Let's say it's 0. We can go ahead and just show first screen. And instead of just actually having a label like that, let's go ahead and add a navigation view. Let's try that one more time. We're going to add a navigation view right in here. And inside of this navigation view, what I'll actually do is let's toss a vertical stack. I'll put the text in there. And we should start seeing that there's also a title on here as soon as I add the title modifier. Let's go ahead and let's call this home actually instead of first. And if you take a look at our preview after I go ahead and hit this resume button and Xcode decides to cooperate, we should hopefully start to see home. So we do have an issue here. It's yelling at us about our switch statement needing to be exhaustive. So what I'm going to do is add a default here. And what I'll go ahead and do is copy that navigation view. And here I'm going to go ahead and say this is second. We can go ahead and call the title on this guy second as well. Go ahead and hit Command B and everything should now be hopefully compiling. We'll hit try again and we should see home here. So looking pretty good. You might have noticed also that the navigation view actually takes up the full height of the screen. So I believe we can get rid of the spacer now. And the tab bar should still remain at the bottom. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's go ahead and change each of these icons to be unique. So all we're doing here is providing a system icon name. So it's pretty simple. If we want to change it, we just need to hold an array of different icon names. So let's go ahead and say icons here. And this is just going to be an array of image names. Let's go ahead and add a bunch. And these are all coming from SF Symbols, which is Apple's iconography library. So I'm just going to think of the ones I know off the top of my head. So we'll go ahead and say plus. Let's see, what else do we need? I think there's one that's called like lasso. And let's also grab, I think message is one of them maybe. Kind of guessing here, but let's see. So now what we can do is instead of hard coding this to be house, we can say that this is icons and just grab the nth icon at the given number. And just like that, it goes ahead and changes them if we hit resume, or it should change them at least. All right, looking good. So it definitely changed them. And now we want to actually do something in the action here. So let's go ahead and take care of this action. So you guys probably might know already what I'm going to do if you're familiar with SwiftUI. All we really need to do is change the selected index. So all we're going to do is say selected, or we can say self.selected index. And this is simply going to be the number in our for loop here that we are picking. And once we go ahead and do that, because it is a state property, it will recompute our view and it's going to hit our switch statement again and go to the relevant case. So we have 5 icons down there. So we should have 0. This one will be 1. And let me just go ahead and change the titles on here to align. So we can say settings, add, edit, and message. So let's go ahead and just change these titles so we can actually distinguish between the different cases here. So this is going to be 2, and this is going to be add. And let's do this one more time. And then we can use default as the final one there. So this one, we'll go ahead and call it edit. And this last one here, we'll go ahead and call it message. So let's go ahead and hit Command B. Hopefully everything is compiling. And I'm going to go ahead and actually hit resume right over here. And let's go ahead and hit the run button. And what you'll see, hopefully, if I go ahead and tap on this guy, you'll see we are now on settings. Now we are on add, so on and so forth. So looking pretty good. The next thing that we want to do is right now there's no selected state that's tied to what you're tapped on, which is A, kind of ugly, and B, like not very helpful for the user because they kind of want to know which tab they're looking at. So you might know what I'm going to do already, but we're basically going to take whatever the selected index is, and that foreground color is going to be the darker one. Otherwise, we're going to pick a lighter one. So here I'm going to say if the selected index equals the given number that we're on, go ahead and show black. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and show possibly a gray is what I was going for, but I think there's a light gray we can grab also out of UI kit. So we're going to wrap it in color. So this is going to be UI color dot light gray, just like that. And if you go ahead and hit Command B one more time, what you'll notice is the thing that is selected is actually the selected darker color. So you can actually more easily distinguish, what is selected. So let's go ahead and customize this because this is starting to look like the tab bar that comes out of the box, but we want to do some fancy stuff on it, which is kind of the point of customizing it. So let's say you want this middle tab to be, I don't know, like a different color or something. What you could go ahead and do is you can introduce different functionality here with either a view model or a if-else block. So what I'm going to do is just use a if-else block for the sake of simplicity. So we're going to say if the number is 2, which is the middle option here, we can go ahead and change the color of this, the foreground color to, let's go with, I don't know, let's go with a blue color and take a look at what that looks like. So let's go ahead and hit resume over here. And you should notice that the plus is now blue. Now, we could also go ahead and change the background color on this. So maybe we want the background to be blue and the foreground color, we maybe want that to be white to give us a different look. So let's make sure we're going to get a good look here. So let's see what this is yelling at me about. Cannot infer contextual base reference. Let's see, we want this to be a background color to make sure we use the correct one. We're going to use color.blue. Let me go ahead and, all right, there it goes. Sometimes SwiftUI just needs to be a little handheld. So let's go ahead and take a look on our preview over here, and you'll see that our actual button is now blue and the plus is white. One thing you might notice is that the size of it is a little small, so we can go ahead and add some padding to this, and you can adjust it and make it look however the heck you want. If you don't want to add padding, you can alternatively give this a fixed frame with a width of, let's say, 40, and you can also give it a height of 40 as well. You can, of course, go ahead and round the corners on this if you want like a circular middle tab. That's a pretty popular design that people try to go for. Let's go ahead and build, and let me go ahead and rerun this preview with a resume. Sometimes it loves to not update, but it's much larger now. To make sure the whole frame is in fact blue, make sure you move the background color modifier here after the frame. And you can now see the middle one is much larger. Let's go ahead and bump this up even more in size. So let's say 60 by 60. And it's nice and obnoxiously big. You can go ahead and round the corners on it now to give it a nicer rounded look. So we've set it 60 by 60. So if I say 30, I believe I'll get a nice circle in the middle there, just like that. So looking pretty slick. Now, right now, all of these buttons are tied to tabs that change the selected index state up here. So if you didn't want to, in fact, do that, one thing that you could do is right here in the button action, let's say you wanted to do something custom on that particular button, you can go ahead and say, if the number is 2, do this. Otherwise, go ahead and just update the selected index. So let's say here you wanted to use maybe show an alert, or you maybe wanted to show something completely different. Let's say you wanted to show, I'll use a spacer here, a cover. So let's go ahead and see if I can find it, a full screen cover. And let's see, is presented is a bindable. And let's see, let's go ahead and say this is presented. And let's see, in here, I'm just going to add a text, and we'll go ahead and say full screen. Let's go ahead and add that state up here for presented, which is going to be a Boolean, which by default we'll say is false. What you could do is, let me make sure this is all compiling. What you could do is if the selected index, rather the number is 2, you can go ahead and say this dot toggle, which will show that full screen cover sheet. So let's go ahead and hit try again over here in our preview, make sure everything is compiling. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the live preview. We'll go ahead and hit this blue button, and you'll see we get this really cool full screen modal. So let's go ahead and make this look a little bit nicer. Instead of just having the text up here, what I'll go ahead and do is we will change this to be a button so we can actually dismiss this modal now. So we're going to put a button in here with an action and a label. So the action is just going to be presented.toggle. That'll go ahead and get rid of the over cover sheet, so we can actually toggle the presented back to false. And we'll go ahead and make this button say closed. Let me go ahead and just give it a nice frame with a width of 200, a height of 50, and we can go ahead and simply ignore that alignment. Let's go ahead and give this a nice background color of maybe pink. And let's see, sometimes this background really needs some hand holding. So there it goes. And I'm also going to give it a nice corner radius of perhaps 12. So let's go ahead and hit Command B and rerun our live preview here. Let's go ahead and hit resume. We're going to click on this play button, and let's go ahead and click on our big plus button here. And you'll see we get this modal. And we can go ahead and tap on this guy, and it actually closes that out for us. And we are now back at our normal UI with our tabs. So this is how you can create a custom tab bar in SwiftUI. It's pretty simple. So some good pointers that I'll call out here is you might want to, instead of having all your view contents here in your switch statement, like these navigation views, you probably want to abstract these to their own views. So what I mean by that is instead of doing that, you might want to create a home view, and I would put it in a different file personally, but go ahead and create a home view here, which is a view, and just supply the actual UI in the body of this guy. Not only will that keep your code organized, but that'll make sure that SwiftUI doesn't start yelling at you for having too many nested views. So that's fairly important. The other thing, which might be slightly difficult to see in light mode, so let me go ahead and switch this to dark mode here. Bear with me. So if I switch this to dark mode here, you'll notice that the divider at the bottom of your UI here is not the best aligned. You could add some padding to the bottom or top of it. It's very, very light and subtle and kind of hard to see. So one thing that you might want to consider is in the vertical stack that you have the Z stack and H stack in, you can go ahead and set the spacing to be 0 vertically between those elements. And on the divider, if you wanted, let's say, some more bottom padding, you can go ahead and add some bottom padding, let's say like 20, which might be a lot in your case, but you can add some padding and make sure that the divider and the tab bar has some nice room to breathe. You can also, of course, not have the divider if you want your blue circle to go over the line. One other thing you might notice is the selected color, we set it to be black. That's probably not what you want to do, because otherwise you won't be able to see if something is selected or not. So what I encourage you to do is use semantic colors. So if it is selected instead of black, we will use color dot label. That way everything will look correct in both light mode and dark mode. So if we go ahead and just hit try again on our preview over here, you'll see that this guy will change to hopefully be white in just a moment. Let's see why this guy is yelling at me. All right, so we've got this that's yelling at me. This should be a comma is what I meant to do, not a colon. All right, so there is our padding and there is our selected index. So just play with the colors and do what you got to do to make it look however you would like. The other call out and last call out I'll make is we put all these icons in this array of strings. I encourage you to probably make like a view model type struct here. So maybe create a struct of tab item, and this guy would hold like, the title in it, the image, so on and so forth. So subjective, but it'll clean up your primary content view in your app. So That's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, definitely drop a like down below. Helps out the channel grow tremendously. Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear if you guys are using SwiftUI, Swift in general. What are you working on? Video suggestions. I try to reply to every single comment fairly quickly. And of course, if you have not subscribed, definitely hit subscribe to stay up to date with daily iOS, Swift, and SwiftUI videos. Hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I upload. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.